I think
I mean,
there's
sorry.
no, no, take it away.
I think forcing the vote. I mean, okay, so force the vote. The moment has passed in terms of like Nancy Pelosi, trying to use leverage over her speakership as a way to force her to bring a floor vote on Medicare for all. That's over. Um, I think let's separate these things. The floor vote on Medicare for all, I don't necessarily think is a terrible thing. I think it's actually a good thing, even if it is a failure. I don't agree with folks who say that like the floor vote failing would damn Medicare for all. I don't think that's really true. Um, I don't really think though that trying to kind of pin it to whether or not Nancy Pelosi keeps her speakership um, really was all that strategically sound. Um, you could say, okay, yeah, we need to make people show their asses on this, and if we can threaten Pelosi's speakership, we should do that. But like, if you threaten Pelosi's speakership, first of all, I mean, like that wasn't going to happen. But if it did, who's replacing Pelosi? You have a whole bunch of blue dogs and Kevin McCarthy and whoever else, who are going to be worse than Nancy Pelosi, even if you can even believe that that's a thing, um, in line after. Or Hakeem Jeffries, who's like, already pretty terrible. Um, so I think like if it's like we want a floor vote and we're going to threaten it, and if somehow it magically works out that we don't make her speaker, we can end up with who knows what. Um, I do think a floor vote isn't a bad thing, but I think to what end? I think also the argument that like this will raise awareness of how much we need Medicare for all, or who doesn't actually believe in Medicare for all that's in Congress or whatever. I mean, we're talking about the same, and it'll get in the media and all that stuff, and then people will be all for it. Like, do we not remember this Bernie Sanders primary in which the media, wasn't too kind to him? I don't think they're going to be any kinder to Medicare for all, um, threatening the healthcare and health insurance industry, which is 1/5 of the economy. So like the idea that some kind of media event is going to come out of this and we're going to win because of that, I think that's also really, really, you know, unfounded.
Right. If you can remember all the way back 9 months ago, this has been relitigated recently. Also, the idea that you would make a media spectacle over something people who watch C-SPAN will pay attention to, I'm not sure is really going to land in the numbers you need. Which is why this whole like argument is so strange, right? Because it's taken place between people who just got out of a coalition together, and it doesn't seem like we're arguing over anything very substantive. The form it's taking place is the interesting part of it, because all of the pressure, like when you let Jimmy Dore on a podcast and he just screams at you and you're like, that's what I got you. When you get him out, his entire mechanism, his lever, is yelling at AOC for her to make it happen. Like she doesn't have the moral fortitude to make it happen, and her issue is an issue of character, which I
And then
think
yelling at
does.
DSA for not making AOC make Nancy Pelosi make it happen.
Right.
Right. Why didn't DSA make Nancy Pelosi do good things for us?
Can I talk on this
and money
for a second?
Yeah.
This is kind of
Go off.
where my head's stuck with this whole thing, which is that, like, I think that it's what's going on here. It's very clear that this is an idea that came out of this modern, like, DIY sort of self-made pundit sphere. This is not an organizer's idea. An organizer wouldn't come out of nowhere and at the very last minute, at the 11th hour, go, I've got this, very personal to me, like, thing I'm angry about, this litmus test that is once and for all going to show us who is with us and who's against us, right? This is all very libidinal, And it all strikes me as, like, something that's coming from someone who's got this unique kind of recent like identity, which is something that, you know, maybe we were even taking part in a little bit here with us doing like a podcast, which is that your connection to all this is through the fucking TV, right? And essentially, it used to be somebody like Jimmy Dore would be sitting at home yelling at his TV alone in a room, and no one would ever hear him. But you know, we have technology now, so he's able to turn that into a show, and that's cool. You know, a lot of people watch Jimmy Dore, and I don't disagree with a lot of things he says, but it sounds like, you know, I watched the other night the movie The Thing, and you remember that scene where they like heat up the wires and they're like testing people's blood and they're trying to figure out who's the fucking thing and who's a human, you know? That sounds like what he wants to do with like this conception he's got in his head over who is secretly fucking for us or who's secretly against us, you know? I want to hold a floor vote where we fucking hash it out once and for all. But
Right.
that is a fantasy. It's a little bit conspiratorial, in my opinion, that there's like people that are secretly having meetings where they're like, we are against the people, and that there are people who are secretly having meetings, you know, where they're like, we're the only good ones in Congress that actually want to do Medicare for all. It's not a conspiratorial problem. It's like a structural problem.
It's also like it's not that hard to tell. Like, go look at who gives money to who.
Yeah.
Does this person take money from health insurance industry or big pharma? They're probably not going to support Medicare for all. Did this person sponsor the co-sponsor the legislation? Have they advocated for Medicare for all already? They're probably going to support you.
Yeah,
It's like, it's not that difficult. There are other ways to figure out who's a supporter and who's not that don't require, you know, the theater of well, not even the theater of the floor vote, the theater of like being mad about a floor vote.